Kia ora, Lara here, also known as Scrappy Kia on various social media. Today I'm joining in with Pour Your Way Into Our Heart, which is a monthly opportunity to share some gorgeous layouts featuring our pets. So I have older children these days, so joining in on this sort of YouTube hop is a great way to document our cats and perhaps the dogs that also live here, because my children aren't really around to photograph, and there's only so many cups of coffee I can pop into a layout. Have to go on more adventures. So this photo is of our two cats, and normally it's just one of the cats, the one at the front that sits on me, but in this occasion it was both cats, and just the wee paw that sort of comes forward to tell me that I shouldn't move anywhere because I should stay right where I am is just rather gorgeous. So what I've decided to do is pull in a few sort of grey and sort of peachy coloured papers into this page, and so I'm just sort of tearing them into strips. I kind of wanted a little bit of a central piece, and I'm just, when I'm cutting the papers here, it's sort of I think this one was about 3.5 inches, and then I'm sort of roughly tearing it. I don't want it to be able to go all the way across the page, but I want a little bit of shape, a little bit of texture. The reason I'm sort of gone this direction with the papers is the sort of crochet blanket in the background of the photo. So I just sort of wanted that layered, kind of cozy, warm, naturalish look, if that makes any sense. So I went through some of these papers, the paper collections I had, and it seemed to be these sort of apricots and greys that won out, and I think two of the papers are from the same collection, and I'll list them below, and the other one is from another collection at this point. And I do pull out a fourth piece of paper, it just felt it needed something other than just the white background on the layout. So here's my sort of 3 pieces. I'm sticking with 3. It's just that design element of 3 seems to be the way things often go, and in this case it's going to be the way it is today. And so I've got the photos. They are just I think they're 3x4s, and I'm going to mat them on this sort of embossed cardstock. So again, I just wanted that texture of the crochet rug behind, and there is actually, I think, an embossing folder that you can get that is all about the crochet, but this one is the Eyelet 3D embossing folder that I've used. So here is the extra piece of paper that I've got, and what you can't see me doing in the background is finding some inks and some colours that will go with it. So I still have a lot of my close to my heart inks that I'm using here, but I am slowly moving over to Stampin' Up as an opportunity to create with some rather lovely products. And I have just chosen to do this here. It's I've forgotten the name of it. I would like to say sea glass or something like that, but I think it was the newer version of that I'm going around the edges of, and I'll pop the name of that ink that I've chosen below. It reminds me, there's another Stampin' Up ink that it reminds me of, so I'll pop both of those below so that if you've got either of the inks, you'll be able to play around with some of these colours. And so I'm just sort of inking around the edge because it just felt it needed a little bit of separation from the background, from where the white cardstock will be going, but I also felt like I needed to add something more in it. So I'm pulling out some Lagoon and some Emerald inks. They remind me of 2 of the in colours for this year, so I've just chosen to use these in this page. I do maybe have some of the Stampin' Up inks arriving in the next couple of days, and I'm really looking forward to using them. The inks that I've used so far, I've got some neutral colours, so later on you'll see me using some Smoky Slate and some basic grey, and I really love sort of the foaminess or the softness. Like with the felt pads you have to kind of tamp really hard sort of, but with these ones like this one here that I'm using, and I'm just putting this onto that same embossing folder, the Eyelet 3D embossing folder, and I'm just using it as kind of a rough stamped texture. So I'm just pressing it down. I sort of felt around on the embossing folder for the side that's going to leave this kind of impression rather than the negative side. So I sort of wanted the dots, but you could use either, and it's just sort of that mixed media kind of background look. So I'm just going to set that aside to let it dry a little bit. And for that, I use the basic grey ink pad by Stampin' Up to do that one. So now I'm going to trim down these photo mats so that they're not taking over too much. There's just a nice soft subtle texture in the background. Now I haven't really embossed my matting very often, but in this page I actually really like how it came out, and I just love that lift. I didn't need to add too many pieces of pattern paper behind it like I normally would, but I've just used that nice embossed texture in there, and it just gives a really nice lift once it all comes together. So I've got these about the same size, and I am going to use the foam here, the 3D adhesive, just so that it's going to stick enough. So because it's got that rough background texture, it needed that sort of foamy that foamness to stick onto it to help it stick evenly, I guess would be the way I was working on that one. So do that with both and just tuck these on there. Now this layout, as it came together and as I finished it, it feels a lot simpler somehow than a lot of the pages I've done recently. If you check on my Instagram, there's one that I did that used so many gorgeous die cuts and ended up using lots of the Stampin' blend markers to colour in the stamps, and it had just so much detail in it, whereas this one's quite subtle. So just interesting seeing how things play about and what comes out. So this, the cat that's at the front there is Boxer. He does belong to my middle daughter, who lives at the other end of New Zealand almost, and the one in behind is Rua, and Rua belongs to my daughter, who now lives about half an hour away. So they live here with us, and we're quite thankful that they do. But my son has a couple of dogs that have moved in, and the cats don't really like the dogs much, so they tend to live in our bedroom a whole lot more than anywhere else in the house. So just popping these layers down together, sticking it all on and building up what I've sort of developed in the background, and a bit of a concept that's come about as I have played around with all these different bits and pieces. So I'm just using the adhesive. I'm using the strong adhesive in this one just because of that texture. I felt it needed quite a bit of grip, and just pressing that down there. So I sort of looked around for different embellishments and different things that I felt might go with it, but I didn't really have many cat things or other bits and pieces, so I've kept it quite soft and just practice stamping this hay because it's the first time I've used it. I thought it would make kind of a cool title onto one of these ephemera tags. And so I've just got hay, and I think off camera stamp I love you underneath the hay, and I've just pulled out these little tassel things which are also from a different ephemera pack, and I am just going to stick them down up there, and I bring in a little bit of stitching later on to try and connect that that greeny colour across. So just getting that stuck down up there and liking how that's sort of coming together quite nicely, and decided to tuck the hay down a little bit rather than it being straight across underneath that photo. It just felt, while it's got the tears and things, it just felt everything was just a little bit too lined up or too organised, maybe, for want of a better word. So just thinking about where I'm going to pop this journaling, wondered about down there under hay, but I decided to tuck it over onto the right. And I'm just saying I love cosy winter nights and mornings when you both snuggle up with me. So I can't actually remember if this was a night photo when I sat in bed to read, or if it was one when I was enjoying my cup of coffee in the morning. So it's possibly a morning one, looking at the lighting in the photograph. So there I've got my journaling, and I pull out a white gel pen and I'm just sort of outlining the edges. It was a little bit hit and miss. I think because I've handled the paper, or I had inked up the edges a little bit, it didn't seem to get the same grip as it normally would, but it still added a nice sort of element, or a little bit of a decorative feature again around that edge, especially when I come around and wrinkle up the papers like I do shortly. So just zooming around all the edges. It's a rough-handed one, it's no neat ruler kind of thing going on, just getting a little bit of that line tucked in there. I did wonder about stitching. It just sort of, it felt like because of that fabric again in the blanket, it could handle a bit of stitching right round, but I decided that I didn't want to go there, especially when I'd already sort of stuck down that middle piece. And so I do end up adding a couple of stitches, sort of kiss, kiss, kiss kind of, in between the two photos kind of. So I'm just going around and roughing up all of the edges. I wanted that nice texture, that nice lift. And you can see just how roughing that up gives that lift or that look, that texture into it. So now I'm going to poke the holes and do the stitching. So I'm just going to do 3 sets of sort of 4 stitches, and then I am going to use sort of, I'm not sure of the right, is it Pool Party? I think it kind of is the colour, or it might be Shy Shamrock that this colour sort of connected with for me. So I'm just going to poke this through. Now I didn't poke these holes very well. When I was sort of getting set up to do this, I had a good look around for a foam mat that I normally use to poke holes and stuff through, but I couldn't quite find it. So I do go back shortly when I sort of couldn't find where I was trying to put the threads for this next stitch. I go back in and I sort of pierce those holes. See how I'm struggling with the needle to get it in there. So I'm going to work from the other direction, being very careful, of course, not to poke it into my hand. When I first got a tool like this, my husband used to call it the stabby tool. It was kind of a bit of a joke, but then again, I think it could hurt quite a bit if it went into skin. So just doing these stitches, I could have sped this up, but I didn't, and they do get a little bit tangled at the back. Normally when I'm doing stitches and things, it's around the edges of pieces of paper, so doing it right in the middle of something sort of adds another element or dimension to what I am working on. So what pets do you have? Maybe scrapbooking your pets is something you do a lot of already, or maybe it's something that you need to document a wee bit more. My husband and I think, are cat people. Once upon a time he told me he was allergic to them, but we've always seemed to have a cat since we got married. So there is my layout of the 2 cats snuggling up on a cozy morning or evening, not sure which. And here's just a couple of close-ups of the layout showing some of the textures and details. Check the links below for other people joining in, and check out the other layouts of people's pets. Thanks for watching.